And what about you? 2014 BMW 3 Series. This is a 318 on the F30 chassis. And in this video, we're going to maybe show some hints and tips of removing and replacing these handbrake shoes. And just quickly before we do the handbrake shoes, I'm just going to show you this car is in for, well, it was originally booked in for a service, but it has multiple issues. It's a Hammer House of Horrors under here. So the oil is just flying out of it at the bottom there, you know. And what do you say this for a laugh? Starter motor. How does this car even start? So back onto this job. Now, customer complaint, handbrake not holding the car, you know. So he pulls the handbrake lever way up to the roof and it still doesn't hold. So he asked us to have a look at the handbrake. So these BMWs, Mercs and stuff like that, you know, they have inboard shoes that do the handbrake or parking brake, whatever you want to call it, on the disc. The disc then, the normal surface of the disc down there is for the pans, which is the foot brake, and that's the caliper hung up. So we clearly remove the disc, remove the wheel. I've blown this with the blowgun there, blow all the dust off it, and give it a bit of a spray with brake cleaner and whatnot. So this is where we're at. I'm not going to show you that bit because it's just nuts and bolts, and that's the bolts of the carrier. If you're struggling to take the disc off, you know, you can poke a screwdriver through the hole and put that adjusting mechanism down in as much as you can to, you know, to bring in the shoes if the disc isn't coming off. So as we can see on these shoes here, the reason why we're changing these, we can see multiple cracks. You know, half of the shoe facing isn't doing anything. It's all just corroded and rusty, you know. And if we look under the disc, you know, the story's the same. There's multiple cracks everywhere, and all that sort of jazz. So those discs are gonna go in the bin, you know. So we need to give it a chance to, you know, operate. So just changing one component without changing the other component, you know, you're sort of defeating the purpose of the exercise. So you need to change everything. And what I tend to do on these handbrake type deals is I buy a kit, which is the shoes, all new springs, and new adjuster, new one of them things there, because, you know, it all just rusts up, you know, and it's all just worn and stuff like that. The springs lose their tension and all that sort of thing. So people ask me, well, why are you changing the springs? There's nothing wrong. Well, the springs are being pulled all the time. So you just replace everything. You can buy that in a kit form from BMW or some of the aftermarket providers do the kit with everything in it. See, believe it or not, these aren't too bad to do. They look a bit daunting because, you know, they're behind the hub, and you know, without taking the hub off, taking the wheel bearing off, undoing this drive axle nut and all that carry on, you can do it all right with them where it is, you know. It's no big deal really. The Mercedes ones I find are a wee bit more tricky than these BMW ones. So first thing is you want to get this closed down as much as you can, you know, if you haven't done so already, in the process of removing the disc stroke drum. So this is just showing what we're doing. There's a hole here in the back plate, and you could maybe poke something in there, but that's a really awkward way of doing it. So you close that down, basically as far as it'll go. And the next thing we want to do is grab ourselves a couple of large Jubilee clips and join them together, or you know, you could even join 3 together. Know what I mean? So enough so it's going to go around the circumference here of these shoes. So you just make out yourself out of a couple of large Jubilee clips. What size are they? One's slightly bigger than the other one, but anyway, you get the idea. And what we want to do is we want to clamp these shoes from stop them from moving on you. So, or band the shoes here. No need to go mad with it. And the reason for the banding is whenever we go to disconnect these springs, so there's one at the top and there's one below down here. And if you don't band these shoes together, you know, stop them from moving about, whenever you go to pull this spring, it's just going to pull here. So it's just going to constantly want to pull the whole thing towards you. So banding them together stops that from happening and makes the removal and putting the springs together. I've shown this in the channel before, by the way, in another video, but this is sort of dedicated to doing this, to taking springs off and on the easy way. And all I use is a pair of parrot nose vice grips. These ones here are tying tools, so nothing special. And we'll just grab the edge of the spring here, you know, if we can. And what we can do sometimes is we can grab the end of it and lever it against there, you know, or you can grab it on up and pull it towards you, pull it that way, you know. But because the shoes can't move now, it's given us a chance to do that. So let's see, might have to adjust it a bit to get onto it. We're not getting onto it. We're not getting a very good catch on that, so we might just, to hold it out a wee bit, I'll just stick something in the middle of it, like a screwdriver. Right, now we can get a better catch onto the spring, because we've prized out a wee bit with the screwdriver, and it'll probably drop out here. Made that look hard. We'll do the same with this lower one. And we'll just lift that top spring out of the way. We'll just leave the lower spring in there for the moment. We could get it out, but we'll just leave it there for the minute. So onto these wee boys here. So we just spin the hub round, it sort of lines up with it. And I'm using a 5mm hex. So a 5mm Allen. I'm using a ball head in this because, well, you probably don't need to use a ball head, but I think it's a wee bit, you don't have to be as spot on then if you use a ball head, you know. So you could do this with your hand on it, or you could put a ratchet on it or whatever, I think. So, and our band is still in place. So these are all being held in place by this band, you know. One's holding the other one, know what I mean? So push in and a twist, doesn't matter what direction. And it'll only go out so far, but we can take it out through the hole from the other direction, you know. So I'll just show that again. There we go. Same with this one then, and bring that around. So that's our shoes free, but they're still held in with the handbrake mechanism. The cable is still holding this mechanism at the bottom. So we don't need our band anymore. We can dispense with that. Well, that's that one gone. Left shoe hit the deck. We should be able to lift our forwardmost shoe out just with the spring still attached. And it's probably a good idea to do a wee reassembly here on the floor, just so you know what way this thing goes, you know, what spring goes where. You know, you could put that in like that and it wouldn't be right, you know, because these notches are different and all that. So just keep your orientations correct. The only thing that leaves is our handbrake expander mechanism here, which is hooked into the handbrake cable. So it might seem a wee bit, how the hell is this going to come out? But if we unhook it from the cable and give it a wee fold over, it'll come out, no problem, you know. So the cable hooks in clearly to there, and then when the cable pulls that, you know, it expands that thing, you know. So putting it back in again, you know, you put it in like that and catch it. Sometimes, there you go, like that. And then you can see the hook hooking around the cable end, you know. And then it's worthwhile at this point making sure your cable is free. You know, it's not stuck. So that's going to work for us. And the only other thing to maybe take a look at this point is the condition of this plate, you know, what that retains the shoes. So if this is all rusty and corroded, you know, it's not going to hold the shoes in. The shoes are going to get dislodged. They're going to come out of place. So our wee place there that the wee spring clips into, you know, that has to have a bit of strength to it. And similarly over here, where are you? Over here, same thing there as well. So that's for that wee T head. So as I say, we're going to be replacing these springs, but there's no point doing all that if this isn't if this is weak, you know. So we'll just see the way that goes. So slots in, and then a quarter turn to retain it, you know, and the same in this one. Slots in and a quarter turn. So that's very important. On these BMWs, the Mercedes are different. The Mercedes is that retaining piece is part of this piece, but on these BMs here, this one anyway, this is separate to that. So that is removable independently, and it'll come out because it's split here, you know, so it doesn't go the full way around. So you could replace that piece there without having to replace that. And before we put all our nice new shiny components on, now's the time to clean this hub up, because if you don't clean it up at this point and you clean it up later on, you're going to cover all your new stuff with rust. Right, so I normally, when I'm doing these handbrake type things, I always get a set or a kit. This one here's a Bosch one. And the reason is, you know, you get all the springs and all the spring things, new springs, new everything, you know. Sometimes the old springs, you know, pulling them out, you can deform them, or just giving all that yanking and pulling, or, you know, as I said right at the start of the video, you know, they've lost some of their spring tension being pulled for that period of time. But the main thing that I really like changing is this component, and I'll show you why. So this is the thing that operates the handbrake. So the cable is in that wee hook there, and this pivots in and out. And as you can see, it's all covered in rust. Now you could say, oh, we'll clean that up and all that there, but it's inside here is the bit that's going to be fouling, you know what I mean? So that isn't free moving, that's sticky, you know what I mean? So you just throw that in the bin. So just for completeness, I like to put a wee bit of, you probably can't see it very well, a wee bit of white grease in that pivot point there, you know, before we put this in. I'm gonna feed her in and make sure she's hooked into the cable. Just like that. So we got a wee sachet of grease as well in that wee kit there. Not sure what type of grease it is. Looks like it's white sort of stuff. Well, anyway, you want to put that on, give it a wee dab on any contact point, you know, where the shoe's going to ride on. And it's actually worthwhile putting a wee taste around that hole there, so it might help us guide it in. So just sort of wet it, you know. You don't put too much, don't carry it on it. Grease actually it'll just attract dust, to be honest with you. So clearly there's a correct orientation the way these go. So that bigger slot there compared to that smaller slot, that bigger slot is for the adjuster at the top. So that is going to go that way. So it doesn't necessarily mean to say that the rating, you know, is all at the front. So this one's going to end up with a rating away from us. Any markings? There's a wee spring away. But so what we'll do, we'll put that in and we'll just slide that through there and make sure she's catching and see if that'll stay there. We'll want to line our hole up here and right through, you know. It wasn't too bad. Sometimes so that can be quite tricky, you know, to get it. You know, may take a couple of goes at that, but that one done all right. Right, so this other side, I think it's maybe prudent to stick that in and hold it in place. The top adjuster. I have the bottom one lined in. We'll scoot that our end and try and find our hole then. Yeah, I think I have it. Got it. That one wasn't as easy. So just make sure everything's in, you know, top and bottom. Just make sure everything's, you know, ends where it's supposed to be. Have it relatively sort of lined up and straightish and all that. And we'll put our band on again. Band on the run. So my old pliers let me down a wee bit at the start. They were slipping, if you remember. I wasn't too happy with that. So what I did was I've dressed them up a wee bit. I don't know if you can see it or not. So just made them a wee bit profound, you know, made the teeth a wee bit more profound, cleared out the wear in them. There's a bit of wear on the front of these, so just dressed them up. So top spring in, get that hooked in. Right, we'll see how this goes. Let's see if I can just push that. There we are, getting there, I think. There we go. And that's us finished with that special tool. We'll keep it aside for the other side. So now that we're assembled, you know, we can give if there's any grease get onto the surfaces, we can give it a wee wipe off with a bit of brake cleaner or whatever. Don't do the brake cleaner, you can spray brake cleaner on that, no problem, on the friction material. Don't do it up on the horn. You know, do it all the time. But what we need to do is keep a hole opposite the adjuster. So you don't want to turn that now. You need that there, and we'll need to adjust that out so it's near enough, but just shy of this inner diameter. Now I have calipers that'll go across that, and I can measure, you know, but just for the sake of the video here, what we'll do is just offer it up, and you know, there's plenty of movement available there in that adjuster. So we'll adjust it so that the widen the shoes out a bit. And that's a bit of a tight fit there. So we'll wang it back a wee bit. So the reason you don't want this hub to move on you, you know, or you don't want to move it when you're doing that, because if you off center that and your disc gets sort of seized on there and you can't take the adjustment off it, might give you a bit of grief, you know, just to save you a bit of aggro, you know. So we're fairly close to that. So we'll put a couple of wheel bolts in. So a couple of wheel bolts in on spacers, you know. Maybe, I don't know, you could put that wee grub screw in there if you wanted, but you need the disc to be held, you know, mimicking the wheel being on. So you need the disc be flat, held properly onto that hub, you know. So putting that wee boy there in to me that'll pull it in on one side, but you'll have nothing on the other side. So that's not, you know, the disc will not sit square. I wouldn't rely on that. You can do it if you want, like, try it, but it's not my method. So what you want to do, clearly, line up the adjuster again, and then, you know, you adjust it until you feel it feel a bit of resistance, and then just back it off a wee taste. So there's a wee cog in there, and I've adjusted this deliberately, so it's right difficult to turn that. So I have far too much in that. There's resistance there. So when we get to that stage, we just flicker up. And that'll do me. Right, so I just took the disc off again there. I'm going to put a wee taste of, this is ceramic grease, white ceramic grease on this hub. Just, that's all that is stop that rusting. You know, so you need to clean these hubs up. You know, I see an awful lot of jobs and I come in here, and that's one bit that a lot of people don't seem to do. So you don't want any rust, any growths or anything like that, you know, that can put the disc off, you know, potentially cause vibration. Now, you might think, oh, how's that going to happen? But, you know, you want that to be a nice true surface, so you know that your new disc is going to sit nicely on it, and that grease will prevent, all that's doing there is to stop corrosion. That's it, nothing else. And if there's an alloy wheel bolting onto this, you don't want to use copper grease. So if you watch any of my videos, I'll be, you know, shouting all the time, don't use copper grease if there's steel and aluminium and different materials. And you might say, oh well, the aluminium, you know, isn't touching that, you know, the steel disc is. This thing, you know, but the water will get in around it. Actually, galvanic corrosion, it doesn't actually have to touch. If you have water, you know, if you have water going between one material and another, two dissimilar metals, they don't necessarily have to touch. The water will corrode them, you know. The water will transport the ions between those two dissimilar metals. They don't necessarily have to touch each other. But anyway, so the only next thing to do is get a new pair of gloves on before I do the other side. Look at that. But the other thing is the cable itself. So in these BMs, in this particular one anyway, the cable adjuster for the two cables is self-adjusting. The self-adjusting mechanism is at the handle, is at the pulley up handle. So normally you don't have to touch that. You know, normally whenever I go to do this here, it'll be, you know, the self-adjuster will pull up the slack that is now available because these are all working right now, you know. The other thing I can say is if this is your car, you know, this is clearly a customer's car. I don't own this car. But if this is your car, it's good practice to, you know, drive about in it, take it for a wee run, drive about, and bring her back in again. And you don't even have to take the wheel off again, but take one of the studs out, and if you can line that up with a wheel on. If not, then you'll have to jack it up and give her a wee nip up again. In other words, let them bed in. So what sometimes for a good efficient handbrake, you know, you want those shoes to bed in a wee bit. Some people even put a wee bit of you know, resistance on it, so there's a wee bit of friction, and then that sort of wears them in. Now, I don't do that, you know. I just make sure the thing is working and then give it back to the customer. But some people, they bed it in and then they readjust it and all that, maybe after a week or something like that. But anyway, that's the gist of it. I'll do the other side now, but it's going to be exactly the same. So that's it. Many thanks for watching, and all the best. And y'all excited?
Will it fly up to the sky?